Hello, hello. Welcome to this space here dedicated solely to the introverted sensors or introverted sensing types. This is really to determine if you're an ISTJ or ISFJ, and I'm using the MBTI acronyms here. But the types that use introverted sensing first. And this is a complete behavioral profile meant to be the only resource truly needed to type someone. Then all the other systems can sort of help you dive deeply, but this helps in typing. So we're going to go through Jung, his profile of the introverted sensation type. I'm going to read excerpts, and then we're going to go to Socionics, which is a system that's quite amazing based on Jung, that really sort of clarifies the functions even more. And so the insights from Socionics are truly important in understanding each function. And also, just like I did with the NE extrovert intuition, afterwards I'll post like a quicker typing guide to determine if you or someone else is an introverted sensor. But this will help. It's just more in depth because I like it. So let's start with Jung. I've taken excerpts from Jung here. So here's the first one. In the introverted attitude, right, sensation is definitely based upon the subjective portion of perception. So when you perceive, not only do you perceive an object, but you are also a subject perceiving, meaning there's a subjective component to seeing something. What is meant by this finds its best illustration in the reproduction of objects in art. When, for instance, several painters undertake to paint one and the same landscape, same view, with a sincere attempt to reproduce it faithfully, each painting will nonetheless differ from the rest, not merely by virtue of a more or less developed ability, so it's not about talent, but chiefly because of a different vision of the same landscape. There will even appear in some of the paintings a decided psychic variation, both in general mood and in treatment of color and form. So this is really like you're taking a painting class and you are all painting this pot or this model. Each rendition is going to be different in color. Someone might use, like for a skin tone, there's going to be more pink. The other one is going to be maybe more yellow. Some will use more shadows. Some will see more light. And it's not about talent. It's really about the subjective perception. We will not see exactly the same thing when we look at the same object. That is SI. So another excerpt. As a matter of fact, the subject perceives the same things as everybody else, only he never stops at the purely objective effect, but concerns himself with the subjective perception released by the objective stimulus, right? The effect the object has on internal vision or perception. Subjective perception differs remarkably from the objective. It is either not found at all in the object, or at most merely suggested by it. So this is how our own senses and our own sense perceptions modifies the real object, right? So we won't see the same shades of blue. We won't see all the same textures. We won't see, someone will maybe reproduce a tree and it's going to be small like this, but in another painting it's going to be gigantic, right? Subjective sensation apprehends the background of the physical world rather than its surface. Right? So it's like what lies beneath the sensation, you could say. The decisive thing is not the reality of the object, but the reality of the subjective factor. So the primordial images, which in their totality represent a psychic mirror world. So Jung creates some sort of mystical, archetypal view of sensation. So this is an intuition. I want to say it right away. This is not about finding the meaning of the thing. It's more about finding a vision, a sensation vision of the thing, independent of the current state of it. We're going to get to it, but it's a bit complicated, this function. Jung had a hard time. He wasn't intuitive, right? We all agree. So I think he had a hard time understanding sensation in general, but let's continue. So such a consciousness would see the becoming and the passing of things beside their present and momentary existence. And not only that, but at the same time, it would also see that other, which was before their becoming and will be after their passing hence. To this consciousness, the present moment is improbable. So I view this, for example, you look at an apple, and the SI person can see where that apple comes from and where it'll rot and how it will maybe become compost and lead to more plants. So as you can see, there is a timeline that we would associate with an I, but it has nothing to do with the meaning of the apple. It's not like apple, Adam and Eve, temptation, or shit like that. Not at all. This is really just about the state of an object, how it was and how it will be in a sensation perception. That's what SI sort of sees, the essence of the object in a sensation way. Introverted sensation conveys an image whose effect is not so much to reproduce the object as to throw over it a wrapping whose luster is derived from age-old subjective experience and the still unborn future event. So again, you could see that idea of past, present, future in a sensation way. But since this is the exception, it usually happens that the characteristic introverted difficulty of expression also conceals his irrationality. So these are types that you may not know are irrational because it's introverted. On the contrary, he may actually stand out by the very calmness and passivity of his demeanor, or by his rational self-control. This peculiarity, which often leads the superficial judgment astray, is really due to his unrelatedness to objects, right? There's something that separates the SI person from the object. It's like, I'm not going to see this object as it is. I'm not interested in the object. I'm interested in how I perceive it within myself. So they may look calm, passive, rational, and self-controlled. You would not necessarily see their irrationality that are very present. But these are behavioral clues. Considered from without, it looks as though the effect of the object did not obtrude itself upon the subject. This impression is so far correct inasmuch as a subjective content does, in fact, intervene from the unconscious, thus snatching away the effect of the object. So there is an independence, just like any introverted type, of the SI person towards the object, right? It's like, I don't care about this object. I just use it for the sensation it's going to trigger within me. Where the influence of the object does not entirely succeed, it encounters a benevolent neutrality, disclosing a little sympathy, yet constantly striving to reassure and adjust. The too low is raised a little, the too high is made a little lower, the enthusiastic is damned, the extravagant is restrained, and the unusual brought with the correct formula. All this in order to keep the influence of the object within the necessary bounds. And here I see the MBTI thing of routine and stability. But as you can see, it doesn't want to be overstimulated. It brings all overstimulations, anything that doesn't feel sensorily in order or calm or passive, it brings it back to this neutral state. That's what SI wants to do. Thus, this type becomes an affliction to his circle, just so far as his entire harmlessness is no longer above suspicion. But if the latter should be the case, the individual readily becomes a victim to the aggressiveness and ambitions of others. Such men allow themselves to be abused, for which they usually take vengeance at the most unsuitable occasions with redoubled stubbornness and resistance. So here you could see they are stubborn and resistant. This SI that doesn't want to be sort of excited or stimulated. It wants to remain neutral sensorily. And because of this, they might be a bit passive and easily sort of, as they say, like bullied. That's what I see. Bullied in a way, taken advantage of, because they're resisting even emotions, right? SI can be about the physical experience of emotions, not the meaning of it, not the thoughts of it, but just how the emotion feels. So they're trying to remain calm, neutral, passive, and so they'll look like, calm, man, but they'll be stubborn because they don't really want, and this makes me think of Enneagram 9 a bit. I'm sure there's a correlation, but whatever. Actually, this SI type moves in a mythological world where men, animals, railways, houses, rivers, and mountains appear as benevolent deities and partly as malevolent demons. So again, Jung instills a bit of archetypal thing, because when you're introverted, the archetype, the unconscious abstract archetype image is often something you're a bit more in tune with, not unconscious. The archetypal image that lives in our collective unconscious is what the introvert has a bit more access to. So it's still a bit mystical, but again, it's not like the SI person is trying to find the meaning of these benevolent deities and malevolent demons. He just sees these things. His unconscious is distinguished chiefly by the repression of intuition. Very important if you're introverted sensor. What's really truly repressed and unconscious is extroverted intuition, which thereby acquires an extroverted and archaic character, right? What the inferior function is archaic, very immature, out of control. Whereas true extroverted intuition has a characteristic resourcefulness and a good nose for every possibility and objective reality. We've seen that in my other videos. This archaic extroverted intuition in the introverted sensing type as a repressed function has an amazing flair for every ambiguous, gloomy, dirty, and dangerous possibility in the background of reality. So this is more neurotic. It's going to be what ifs that are very terrifying. So that's interesting to know. And last excerpt. It possesses, therefore, something dangerous, something actually undermining, which often stands in most vivid contrast to the gentle benevolence of consciousness. So again, SI people have this gentle benevolence as a conscious character, but as a non-conscious character behind, there's like this trickster clown with all the what ifs that are terrible and terrifying and dangerous and disgusting. Isn't that great? So that's Jung. You could see here like emotional and behavioral dispositions, like they're calm, they're self-controlled, they'll appear composed, passive, even rational, which masks their irrational undercurrents. They'll be non-reactive or minimally reactive, right? They don't appear moved or triggered easily by external stimuli because they're resisting that external stimuli, that object, right? And they tend to neutralize emotional highs and lows in others. Nothing here, man, like this. I often think of like symphony for some reason. Creating physical harmony, right? Symphony. They can seem withdrawn or aloof. They may come across as uninterested, cold, or uninvolved, even if inner life is intense because they're resisting this overstimulation. They can have this stubborn resistance. They'll look compliant, benevolent on the surface, but they can explode with fierce resistance if pushed too far, as Jung said. And they look gentle, but may be unpredictable. So the outward demeanor is harmless and kind, but their unconscious can be moody and subversive and really negative and weird. Interpersonal style, you can see that they're mediating and stabilizing. So they tend to smooth extremes in others. They'll cool enthusiasm, they'll tone down excess, they'll balance dynamics. And this makes a lot of sense with MBTI SIs who are like into routine and tradition. Well, that's just because they repeat these experiences to balance everything. And you know, when something is known, it isn't as exciting as something that's new, that sort of boosts adrenaline maybe, or cortisol or whatever, right? They'll also avoid strong emotional confrontation. We understand why. And they can be passively manipulated. They may allow others to take advantage due to passivity, right? And then unconscious shadow is their repressed any. They have an unconscious fear of chaos, right? The repression of intuitive perception creates a distorted, exaggerated awareness of threatening and dangerous possibilities. And they have an archaic extrovert intuition, right? That is dark, destabilizing intuitions that things might go wrong. It's murky, it's irrational, and it's pessimistic. And their motivations, if we were to recap, whether they preserve inner coherence, they avoid the object intrusion, they maintain emotional neutrality, they resist unpredictability, right? Because they want to stabilize experience and limit the unknown, especially from others or chaotic environments, right? And they seek symbolic depth, but it's not meaning, it's more like timeless, emotionally resonant things and not the fleeting or merely real now. So that was Jung. Wasn't it interesting? And I've done 14 minutes. And this is low for some reason. So, okay. So let's go to Socionics. It'll be shorter, but still. It's very interesting. So what does Socionics add to SI? Well, SI is about relations between processes that happen at the same time in space. So it's still in the now, but here they see that it's relations, sensory relations. Through this element, the individual receives information about the qualities of the space, what happens in it, how people in this space feel. So feel in a sense of a general mental indicator of the physical and spiritual state of the individual at any given moment. The internal situation of the object among other objects. So the way other objects affect another object's state and are reflected in this state. So you could call it a reverberation of the space within the object. It's a sense of whether something is pleasant or of physical and aesthetic satisfaction and dissatisfaction. And when this aspect of perception is in the leading position, the individual is able to change the properties of the environment and the way people in this environment feel. They know how to avoid physical discomfort and how to protect others from it, which is determined by an ability to recreate once experienced aesthetic feelings. Such people can distinguish once experienced aesthetic feelings from new ones and know how to collect and remember them. They know how to fight for the fulfillment of said needs and can shape and refine their own and other people's aesthetic tastes and habits. They have an ability to impose their understanding of aesthetics and comfortable life on others. So Jung is more like the inner perception. Socionics goes more into how this will actually manifest when you're leading your life through this type, right? The sensation, the introverted sensation type. And so it aligns with Jung in the fact of like it's a perception that is subjective. It has a focus on inner physical sensory state. It has sensory memory. It remembers certain experiences and what was neutral or satisfying, right? Has a distaste for overstimulation and a difficulty expressing the inner world directly. What Socionics add is this focus on comfort and aesthetic harmony, this interpersonal skill of being able to manage others' comfort, this practical competence in their ability to like use habits and routines to ensure ease, right? And how they'll shape their lifestyle, but also other people's lifestyle to allow that physical comfort and well-being. And the fact that they can shape taste and lifestyle. Just as I said, those are additions from Socionics. But yeah, you could see tension here. You can see the link between Socionics and Jung, but these should be additions, not the only thing you base it off on, because Socionics doesn't really say anything about the gentle benevolence. It's not really talking about the paintings. I guess so, a little bit. I think it's just adding a layer that's more behavioral. Like if you have sensation here, what does it look like when you're leading your life through this? And it will look like this. And I guess there's also still, there could be that resistance of discomfort, resisting aesthetic discomfort, aesthetic insatisfaction. So they might be stubborn anyway, right? I think everything sort of links, and you can get this archetype of like the comfort seeker, the almost like the calm meditative monk or something that just isn't attached to anything materially, isn't really focused on understanding the meaning of life. It's just flowing, creating comfort, creating physical harmony, stabilizing everything, harmonizing everything. And so I really see this sort of Zen person here. So there you go. That was Introverted Sensing. And I think it's really, really interesting, and it's a beautiful type. And I can't believe personally that I've been typed this. It is incredible how much this is not me. Can tell you that. I just get like, definitely not my first function. Like that's for sure. I can tell you right away. So I think that going back to the sources and the good theories here is extremely crucial and important to actually type yourself well and type other people well, because I think with new Jungian-MBTI stuff, they got lost a little bit, but that's my opinion. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped you determine if you're SI or if someone else is SI. And soon I'll post the quick typing guide, which is sort of like a big resume of this. Questions you can ask yourself in like under 10 minutes if you want to know if you're SI or if someone else is SI. And I'll add some MBTI neo-Jungian insights, but still rooted in this Jung Socionics description. So thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate your presence on my channel. I know I'm very nerdy and I go too deep, so this is going to be very niche. So if you're still here, well, I can't wait for you to watch the other videos and for you to comment what you think or what you've learned or whatever. I love that. I think it's really important for us to share our thoughts. Have a great day.